Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Mindful in Minutes podcast. I'm Kelly, and today we have a really special guest on the podcast. It is a newer friend to me, but someone who I've been so inspired by. And also, I have to call out, she is a personal favorite of Bestie of the Pod. You know her and love her, Daniela. So we are both absolutely obsessed with Mimi Bouchard, who is our guest today. And Mimi is an entrepreneur, an investor, a podcaster, thought leader in the self-improvement and wellness space. She's the founder and CEO of the top-rated activations app, which I love and use. And Daniela actually got me hooked on it. And she has redefined personal growth and audio by creating a new category of short functional audios designed to seamlessly elevate daily life. So with tens of thousands of devoted subscribers worldwide, including high profile fans like Miranda Kerr and me and Daniela, Mimi has become a pragmatic motivational voice for women everywhere with no nonsense advice and measurable results. And she's also an author. Her book is called Activate Your Future Self: The Secret to Effortlessly Becoming the Happiest, Healthiest, and Wealthiest You, which I'm putting that absolutely on my to be read list. And also, I wanted to call this out now because I'm going to be real with you guys. I know not all of you make it to the end of the episode. So I was just chatting with Mimi, and she is being sweet enough to let us know that she's going to let anyone try activations for free for 2 weeks. And you can also get a mega discount if you go to activations.com/mindful. So again, I know not everyone makes it to the end, and that's okay. So because we were chatting about it, I want to make sure that I tell you now. I'll put all the information in the show notes. Just make sure that you go to that link, activations.com/mindful. And with all of that, the intro, the business, the information out of the way, welcome, Mimi.
What an intro, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you. I love how Daniela introduced activations to you. That is so amazing. Hi, Daniela. And yeah, I'm so excited to chat. I think that our beliefs are super aligned. I feel like your listeners are just going to love this conversation, and I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh, I'm ready to. And it's so funny because I was trying to think back when I was first introduced to your work. And I think it was around 2 years ago. And it was Daniela, as I mentioned, she was actually at my house, and she lives in Toronto, or is from Toronto, which I know you have roots there.
I'm from Toronto. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of synergy there, but she was at my house, and we were getting together and we were doing like vision boarding because it was kind of towards the end of the year. As you know, like wellness and spiritual friends do. We're like, let's get together and like
Yes.
vision board. And we were doing that. And she was telling me about your work. And she was like, no, you need to listen to this activation. And I think it was one on like money affirmations, which I'm actually really
Mhm.
excited to talk about money with you. We'll get to that a little bit later because I think that's something I've never talked about it on this podcast. But
I
Daniela was
love
like,
talking about money.
I know you do. And so I put it on the list because I was
Yes.
like, I want to talk about it. And it's something that I want to kind of like destigmatize in a way.
Yeah.
So I really want to talk about that too. But I think that was the first activation that I ever heard, was because Danielle is also a business owner like I am. And she was like, we should listen to this, and it'll be so good as we're going into the new year and planning personally, but also professionally. And I think that was the first time that I ever heard one. Was she just was like whipped out the app and was like, we'll listen to this and then we'll vision board. And we just had like this really fun kind of like day when she was visiting me. But that was like a couple of years ago. And so I'm really excited that we finally get to like sit down and chat because I've been using your app. Also, I know about like your story, and I just think it's really interesting. And our lives have taken a few like similar twists and
Mm.
turns. But it was just one of those things. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, where you have like a friend or someone who mentioned something like long ago, and then it's something that just like keeps popping
Coming up.
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you have been that in my life, Mimi. So,
Wow. Love that. That's amazing. Wow. What a treat. Thank
oh my
you.
gosh. And so I'm really excited to talk about everything that you're
Yes.
doing because I think it's just so interesting. But I thought that maybe we could start just from the beginning. So my listeners are really familiar, like with my story and kind of what brought me to the place that I'm at now, and kind of feeling that pull to like do something different, do something greater. But I'd love to hear about like your story and your background and kind of what led you to that point of being like, I want to do something different. I want to be bold. I want to create something.
Yeah, so basically, my entire personal life experience has led me to this place now, almost a decade later, since I've transformed a lot of my life to helping women become their best selves. Like, that's really what I do now. Like you mentioned, I have a book. It came out earlier this year. In that book, and all the research I've done, and over the past 5 years building my business, it's all been about helping women like me that wanted to create a better life for themselves and give them very, effective tools to get there, right? So, bringing it all the way back a decade ago, I was not in a place that I was happy in my life. I was pretty much unhappy in every single area. It feels kind of strange to talk about now because I'm such a different person. I can't imagine the version of myself that I used to be because I'm just so different. But I need to remember that that actually existed. And every time I do a podcast and I talk about it, I often feel like I just glaze over the fact that I was literally a different human. And I don't know why, for some reason now I'm like, wow, I actually was like a completely different human in every sense of the word. I like to say that, in my book, I write about the 5 categories of your life. Basically, I was failing in every single one: mentally, spiritually, financially, physically, socially, all of those areas I was lacking in huge ways. So I didn't like where I was in life. I didn't like who I became. I didn't like how I felt in my body. My health was not great. I was struggling a lot, carrying more weight than I wanted to, didn't feel good in myself. That carried into my mental state, was not feeling good. Went through a lot of intense bouts of anxiety and levels of depression. Financially, living paycheck to paycheck, was trying to be an entrepreneur or make something of myself, and things were just failing. I'd never been in a real relationship before at this point in my life, and all in all, just net negative. So yeah, I kind of embarked on this journey of rediscovering myself and trying to create a life that I actually loved, because I reached a point where I had realized that, now is the time. Life is very short. If I kept going down this path, I would ultimately create an existence for myself that was not what I wanted to experience in this one beautiful shot at life. And it was a pretty sobering moment, at that time. And so I got into personal development. And I started doing all the things. I started doing all the vision boards, all the morning routines, all the journaling, reading all these books, getting quite obsessed with learning about neuroplasticity, about the more spiritual side of things, just really absorbing all the information I could. And I was doing everything. And I really felt like the growth was happening. There were a couple years there that I was trying my best, but it was pretty incremental changes. It wasn't big change. I really wanted to feel big change in my life. I'm quite an impatient person. I like to find the shortcuts. And I was relatively getting better, but it wasn't a lot of change, to be honest with you. And then one day I was learning about visualization at the time, and I thought to myself, okay, how do I start to actually do this? Because I know this podcast talks a lot about meditation. And at that time in my life, I was trying to meditate, but it just wasn't the thing that I felt was going to help me transform at the extent that I needed. And of course, sitting down, closing my eyes, connecting with myself, that's good for any stage of anyone's life. But I felt like I needed a different type of audio, something that would actually help me get out of bed and go. I needed something motivating. So I didn't feel like meditation was doing that for me at that point, because it's not designed to do that. And that's okay. It's designed to help you be mindful and to calm your body and to clear your head. It's a beautiful thing for a certain use case in your life. But I felt like there was another type of audio that I wanted to listen to, with my eyes open, that could help motivate me and inspire me and help me become this version of myself that I've never been. So ultimately, I was in my 200 square foot studio apartment at this time, really close to rock bottom. I'd been trying for years to like make something work with all these other personal development tools, but it was the change was slow. I was still not happy. So I take out my phone and intuitively I just start recording a voice memo to myself. And this voice memo was a mix of guided visualization, quite conversational in tone. It wasn't a meditation voice, it was energizing, it was motivational. And then I decided to add some cinematic music in the background on GarageBand because I felt like that extra layer would kind of help motivate me more. And that was the first activation. I didn't know it at the time, but that was literally the first activation I created. So I started recording and editing and creating dozens of these over the following years. And my growth, the amount of change I saw occur in my life during that time was shocking. It's kind of like when you're looking at a graph with a bell curve, it's slow, 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 and then it just goes whoop and it goes right all the way up. I felt like that was truly a visual of my life trajectory. So from the moment I started listening to these activations, a lot started to change physically in my life. My finances started to change in a very, very, very significant way. My health and my body, it became a lot more effortless to feel good in my body, and my mental health improved, everything, my relationships. It was like craziness. So I started, I kept listening to these over years and years. And then 5 years ago, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to share these with the public. I'm going to call them activations because they're not really meditation, they're different. And then since then, it's been an incredible whirlwind of growth, and it's changed, honestly, tens of thousands of lives at this point. We get testimonials every day from people listening to this new type of audio and just feeling an insane shift in their life. So and then I've just kept leaning into that and simplifying this work because I remember feeling like it was very complicated when I first started. But really, the way that I teach transformation is very simple. So I'm excited to share more. But yeah, that's a bit about my story and how I created all of this.
I have so many questions. I don't even know where to begin because I have so many questions that I want to ask you. The first one that comes to mind is like, what was the topic of that first activation? Like, what did you say to yourself? Because something I don't do is I do not listen back to my own audios, even though I have so many on this podcast. I have like 450 guided meditations on this podcast. And I will say, I love that you talk about how activations are like more motivating and like energizing. And that's not necessarily the point. Like you can do a more energizing meditation, but activations and meditations kind of have these two different purposes, even though sometimes I'm sure a lot of people get them mixed up because it's like a similar format. But I actually was recently listening to an activation when I was walking through Target the other day. I was listening to one about reframing a difficult time in your life. I shared with, Mimi, and I'll share with all of you. And this is part of the reason if my audio sounds slightly different, that we just had a surprise pipe burst in my kitchen. And so now I'm sitting in an Airbnb randomly. And I was trying to reframe this like, oh, there's water coming up from the floorboards. And I was walking through Target getting some essentials because of that. And then I was like, I need Mimi. And I was listening as I was walking around to like this activation about reframing this difficult. And it was just very comforting and very supportive. But I feel like it's something that you can do while you're doing other things. Like in the preschool pickup line, which those school pickup lines are so long. They're always so long. And you're just sitting there and it's like, you can't close your eyes and necessarily meditate. That's not super safe, but you can be like listening to something. So those are my two favorite places. Yeah. But what was your first activation? Like, what did you say to yourself?
It was a very general activation. So a lot of my work is based on self-image psychology. So I was learning at the time, okay, to change my life, I have to change my self-image. To change my self-image, I need to start flooding my mind with new information and visualizing with my eyes open, right? So this is a lot of why activations are so effective. It's because it helps you visualize with your body, with your eyes open. So, self-image psychology, it's all about how you need to become the version of yourself that has the life you want before that life actually materializes and becomes your reality. So that's really the basis of my work. So I knew that at the time. So it was a very general activation, essentially just telling me, getting me to visualize the type of life I wanted, the abundance I wanted, how it feels in my body to have that abundance, the relationship I wanted, how it feels to have a partner that loves me so much that I feel so safe and secure with the relationship I want with myself, my self image, my body image, how I wanted to have an amazing, healthy, fit, strong body that I felt really confident in, but I also didn't want to have to limit foods. I wanted to intuitively eat and not have eating issues like I used to. I visualized that. I visualized a lot of different things. It was a general future self visualization. And when I say visualization, I don't ask in activations, we don't have our listeners close their eyes and visualize with their mind. All we're asking them to do is feel the feelings of their future self, embody their future self frequency during everyday moments. So we have over 16 categories on the app, from walking activations, cooking activations, many pep talks, anytime activations, cooking, cleaning, working out, getting ready in the morning, doing your skincare. These activations are designed to be listened to in everyday moments. You're supposed to habit stack them. And a lot of the research and science as to why this helps you rewire your mind, create new neural pathways, and actually start showing up as your future self in your real life. There is so much data and science to prove why that works, and why specifically with your eyes open, it makes it so transformative. And I'm happy to get into all of that in this episode, but that's really what that first activation was about, and a bit more about the difference between activation and meditation. Because you're right, some people, if they've never heard of activation before, they're like, oh, is this just a type of meditation? And so many of our users, by the way, meditate and activate. It's just a different type of audio with a different use case. A lot of our users and listeners on the app, they are interested in personal development. Well, pretty much all of them are. And maybe at night before bed, they'll meditate to calm their body and to relax their nervous system and to come back to themselves. But maybe on their morning walk, when they're walking the dog, they're listening to a walking activation to feel energized and motivated to become their best self. It's two different types of audio, just like how you would listen to a podcast when you're in the mood to learn something. You listen to an activation when you're in the mood to tremendously shift your energy and vibration to feel like your future self. It is motivational audio that is kind of like a mix of a pep talk, visualization, and then cinematic music. Music is 50% of activations. It is such an essential, huge part of activations. We use composers from all over the world that create movie scores, TV scores, music that is literally that instructs the listener to feel a certain way. And all of the music we use in activations from these amazing composers, they instruct the listener to feel like they are actively transforming and becoming this amazing, incredible, best self version of them that they've always wanted to be.
Yeah. And I feel that, like, I love the music that plays like in the activations. And I feel like it just creates like such a vibe, like for each activation. It's like you can just feel it. And I would love to hear more about this. Is like maybe more of a selfish question, but I'm really curious about your creative process, because it's something that I get asked about a lot too. Also, kind of like being like what we're doing is basically like writing
Mhm.
and producing these things. And so I'm so curious if you're like, okay, can you just walk me through like what your process is? Let's say do you have like writing days? That's what I do. I have certain days that are like writing days and certain days that are like recording days. But if you're like, okay, I'm Mimi and I'm going to create, new activations for the app. Like, what does that creative process from beginning to end look like for you?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot over the years. When I first started, it would really just be I'm not as organized as you might think. I when at the beginning it would be me sitting down and like deciding on the spot the type of activation I was going to record and then kind of just coming up with it on the spot. That was how wild I was back in the day. But now I have an incredible team as the business has grown, obviously. We've put a lot of effort and energy and time and resources into the actual content. So we have our incredible head of brand, Kate, and she is doing research on our audience, doing user surveys, speaking to our audience and seeing what they want, and then designing and writing scripts that I loosely follow when I record. If I feel intuitively in the moment that there's something else or a different type of word to use, I'll do that. But she hits the nail on the head pretty much every time. So having her support's amazing because it also brings many different perspectives and into the app. Like she does so much research and she really like her job is to figure out what content our users want so that we can bring more of that. And we release like 3 to 5 new activations every week. We have over 700, I think maybe over 800 activations on the app right now. So we're always needing to be re-inspired and like create new stuff. But because these activations are designed to be listened to in everyday moments, we had this whole lucky girl energy theme earlier this year. Since that whole thing went, viral on TikTok, we are like, okay, let's create a bunch of content around this. So, we created Lucky Girl cooking affirmations with jazzy music while you're cooking dinner after a long day, getting into that good vibe. And then we have, get into your Lucky Girl energy pep talk, a 2-minute pep talk where it just like forces you to feel a different energy very quickly. And you can listen to that kind of thing when you're in line at the grocery store, at school pickup, whatever it is. So we have a whole series on that. So it's easy to create a lot of content, I think, when you have different themes because you can have similar content for every moment of the day. So if people like that specific type of vibe, they can find whatever they want. So that's kind of the recording process now. And but yeah, I've been through a lot of different phases creatively. The walking activations are personally the most time consuming to create because they are so deeply important. Obviously, every category is important to me, but the walking ones do something different with you. Like there is something so transformative about our walking ones. I will literally be so perfectionistic that I will get my audio engineers to match this certain drop in the song to a word I say for maximum impact because all activations do, they change your energy. They make you feel like your future self. If that one split second matters that much, like I need our team to focus on that. Like every single audio we put out is truly like a masterpiece that I feel so proud of because we're in the business of transformation. That's simply it. We have all these different types of playlists going on at the same time as these frequencies layered in that you don't even notice at the same time with these words that are designed to make you feel alive. So it's been a whole journey, to be honest with you, creatively, but I feel like we're at a place now with so many team members involved that I feel so proud of every activation that drops.
It's amazing. And I think that really speaks to something that I think about as well. Like if I'm creating guided meditations or something, like when you're talking about like your walking activations, that's how I feel about I do yoga nidra as well, which is like yogic sleep. And it's something where it's like a much longer practice, but like everything in it, like when I do like yoga nidra teacher training and people learn like how to teach it themselves, it's such an intentional practice. And that's like what I kept hearing as you were speaking is that like every single thing that goes into it is so intentional. And I think that when people just hear the finished product, sometimes like they're doing one of your walking activations and like they know they feel amazing and they're enjoying the experience, but like how intentional every single little piece here and there is to kind of create this full user experience. And I love hearing about your team. I'm a one woman show around here.
I
And but
was for a
I
long time, by the way. You can grow very big just by yourself. You definitely
yes.
can.
And you know what? And I think part of it is also like personal preference too. Like I do have Alyssa who's been on the podcast who helps a little bit of like repurposing content and things. But other than that, I think part of it is just personal preference. Like I love to just sort of like imagine it and engineer from like beginning to end. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. But something that I think is so interesting, like I hear you talking a lot about like your future self and your best self. And this was something that was on my list that I wanted to pick your brain about, because when I say like I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, I feel that way because I also believe in like your best self or like your future self, but also we're all kind of walking these individual paths, and what one person's like ideal or what someone else is manifesting, one doesn't have to be what you're manifesting, and two, I don't think it necessarily should be, because you're in different circumstances, you have different dreams for yourself. Like if you're living intentionally, what you want to be manifesting or like welcoming into your life might be different. But I would love to kind of pick your brain about this idea of your future self, because I've heard from students in the past that when they're thinking about their future self, they either find it hard to connect with or that they overthink it. And they're like, oh, well, I don't know. It's almost like they're trying to overthink or over explain to themselves what their future self is. And so I'm curious if you could not only speak to like this idea of the future self or your best self, but also what are some ways that like some easy ways that we could connect with that without like the overthinking.
For sure. So I use the term future self synonymously with best self or favorite self, but the future self term is just what I've happened to have fallen into with my brand, with my book, Activate Your Future Self, and a lot of our content on the app using the words future self. But I'm my future self right now. I'm the version of myself that I aspire to be in this moment. And I actually believe that you listening, your future self is actually your true self. And it's not transformation and becoming this version of yourself you want to be with the life you want. It's not about becoming something you've never been, okay? It is about unbecoming everything that you're actually not and revealing the true self, that version of you that you've always actually deeply been, okay? So this is really about coming back to yourself. I, as a kid, felt like the world was full of possibilities. I felt like there could be abundance everywhere. I felt like there was so much potential. And I've only ever come back to that feeling, in my, as I've aged and as I've become an adult, I'm coming back to my younger self. And I feel now when I connect with my soul and how I energetically feel in my future self presence, I feel the most connected to my younger self. So I truly believe that it's the true self. And for anyone that feels like it's very far away to be this version of yourself you want to be, just know that it is actually a lot more simple to become her than it is, than you might think. So it is all about first being crystal clear on who your future self is. Okay. This is step one of my two-step manifestation process. Okay. So step one is you must get crystal clear on who your future self is, how it feels to be her in your body energetically. What does it feel like to live the life you want to live, to feel the abundance you want to feel, the bliss you want to feel, the joy, the health, the awe that you want to feel? And I'm using these broad terms because, like you said, Kelly, everyone has different goals and not everyone wants the same thing. And that's the beauty about being a human and being individual, right? So what I can tell you is that everybody wants the general umbrella terms of happiness, abundance, health, bliss, whatever that means for them. So the first step is clarity. You must also be so clear on how it feels in your body to be your future self. I call it the future self frequency. And I teach that in my book, in the activations app. I could even just high level tell you now how to do it at home without any of that. You just pick 3 to 5 different emotions that you believe your future self feels, and you essentially layer them all together into one frequency that you embody, and it's unique to you. So that's step one, clarity. And then step two is very simple, becoming. Once you are clear on who your future self is, just start showing up as her every day. Become her now. Act as if you already are her. It is very simple, and it's actually not that hard in the moment. It is not hard to do. It's simply a decision. Once you know how it feels to be her, because you have the clarity, then you just simply choose in your day-to-day life to be her now. When I was at the beginning of my transformation, especially even during, I would say those 3 words to myself Be her now. I would put it on a post-it note on my water bottle or on my bathroom mirror, and I would remind myself, be her now. That's it. Just like Nike's Just Do It. It is so simple. All you need to do is be her now. And then the more you do that, the more you start to embody her, the more you start to familiarize yourself energetically, physically, mentally, spiritually, in every sense of the word, you familiarize yourself with being that version of you. And the more you do it, the more you actually become her. And the more you do it, the more you start thinking like her, behaving like her, acting like her. And guess what happens when you start doing that consistently? You start to magnetize opportunities that she has into your life, and then you become her. You really do. So that's the simplified approach to my two-step process. I can dive into all of the science behind how that works, but I'm telling you, that is the way to do it. 2 steps. And anyone listening, you can create the life you want with those 2 steps.
I hope everyone is listening because I'm listening to this and not only am I like mentally taking notes, but also what I keep thinking about too is like your voice, Mimi, and how like great it is. And because I've been listening to it like through the app, but also kind of like the way that you can really give like these pep talks in a way of really kind of just like lifting and like sharing this information and making it so seamless and easy when you're just like, just be her now. And you're saying that I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm like, I guess I could just be her now.
Yeah.
But I love hearing that. And I think sometimes we need to hear, I talk about this too with meditation. It's something that I think people build up to be so complex or something, they can't do because they're neurodivergent or they're busy or, all of these reasons that we feel like we can't do these things now. And I think when we think about whether it be manifestation or visualizing our future self or our best self, that it really can be a lot more simple than we build it up in our head. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love that process and that we got like the high level of like, this is how, because that's something someone could do when they're listening right now is just be like,
Yes.
okay, what are some of these, different feelings? Okay, like I'm going to get crystal clear on like how she feels and I can just start, being
Yeah.
her now. But I'm curious if when you started like I'll call it like upgrading your life, if you have a term you prefer, let me know. But when you started making these like upgrades and these elevations in your life and things started changing, you started becoming her. Did you find that you like lost some people on the way or that there was kind of this like natural like shedding process of things that maybe didn't serve your highest self? And I'm curious, one, if you experienced that, and then if you did, because I've experienced that. And I know that's not always the easiest part of the process is then kind of like what you shed to then become like that best self. And I'm curious if you've experienced that. And if you have, like, how did you deal with that?
When you change, everything changes. And I think that's why deep down subconsciously, so many people are scared of actually taking that step and changing something in their life that they've been unhappy with for a long time. I truly think that people resist it because they're scared about other things changing. But I think you really need to connect with the fear of regret. If you are in that place and you've been putting off this goal you have, or you've been waiting for the perfect moment, you need to connect with the fear of regret because that is what got me out of bed and doing the things, right? And when you connect with your mortality and when you connect with how if you keep going down this same path, you might wake up at 80 years old one day and look back on your life with regret. You need to be scared of that reality. And then that will give you the motivation you need to actually start to change. And I'm telling you from the other side, it is so worth it. I can't even explain to anyone listening right now, like actually committing to yourself. It doesn't even have to take long. It doesn't have to be this like gruesome process, but just committing to yourself and choosing to change a certain area of your life and going forwards with it and actually experiencing success with that is honestly just as good as they say it is. I look at my life today and I'm walking around in the beautiful home I own in London, thinking about how I'm going to my home in the Bahamas in a couple weeks for the winter. And I'm like, wow, it really is as good as I used to visualize when I literally had $10 in my bank account. Like, it is as good. I love the fact that I'm in a beautiful relationship with my husband I got married to a month ago, and how honestly I couldn't complain about any area of my life, but I designed this life. And there have been many things that have happened over the years that were not favorable to me, but I chose to be responsible for my responses, right? I read this thing years ago that has stuck with me. It was E plus R equals O. The event plus your response equals the outcome. So yeah, I can't control everything that happens to me. You can't either. We're on a spinning planet and we're human beings and we can't control everything, right? The world's crazy, but we can control 50% of the outcome, which is our response. So I keep coming back to that event plus response equals outcome. And I just have followed what I teach over these years. And I can't even tell you, Kelly, like, yes, I lost friends. Yes, I lost an old reality that I was comfortable in, okay? And I went through years of discomfort. But what made that discomfort more comfortable was this practice of being her now before actually creating her life, because that became very familiar to me. I was living in this gray area for a while where I was like, okay, I'm uncomfortable because I'm growing, but I'm also comfortable here because it's familiar to me. And that's why this work is so important. And you start to notice the more that you do this work, the more natural it feels and the more you it feels. So I think that you become okay with the changes, and they are worth it. And you know, when you begin to embody that future self energy and remind yourself through, I use activations as my shortcut tool, but you don't need activations to transform, obviously. It's just something that makes it a bit easier because you're listening to these as you habit stack while you're doing the dishes, while you're listening to your activation during your getting ready in the morning, when you're doing your makeup, while you're walking the dog, whatever it is. What, because you're combining new thoughts and beliefs and energy with a mundane action activity that you do every single day, that combination is like magic. You actually take advantage of classical conditioning when you pair new thoughts, new energy with an existing action that you repeatedly do every day. You don't even need to be consciously listening to the audio because it can also act as a subliminal when you're just playing it in the background. So it really feels like magic because it was less work than I had done in previous years before doing activations. And then I started seeing more growth with less work while listening to activations. But it is because I became her and I was naturally doing the things she does. And I was just waking up in the morning and wanting to work on my business and wanting to move my body because that was my self-image. And my self-image had developed by flooding my brain with this information in everyday moments with my eyes open. And feeling the energy of my future so deeply that I was familiar with it. So sorry for that little rant, but that's essentially as simple as I can explain the transformation.
Oh, that's not a rant at all. And when you were I love hearing all of that because something that my therapist, I love your E plus R equals O. I've never heard that before, but I'm going to keep that one like in my brain. But something that my therapist always says is like, if you're going to play the what if game, you have to play both sides. And what she means by that is, sometimes it's, if you're evaluating something and, I have two little kids. So there's a lot of things where you have these like what ifs, right? You're like, oh, what if,
Mhm.
I call my kids Pork Chop and Poppy, but I'm like, what if Pork Chop, goes to school and he doesn't make friends or something, right? And
Oh,
and so,
yeah.
these things, there's just so many things that we play this what if, right? Or what if I change? What if that means I, lose friends or that changes the relationship I'm in? But as my therapist would always say, you have to play what ifs on both sides because also, but what if Pork Chop goes to school and like he makes a best friend?
Yeah.
Or what if you do leave this current relationship for one that's way better? And so she's
Yes.
always kind of, challenging that when you're stuck in that fear, and we tend to play the what if fear piece on for like the negative, but also opening up the perspective of like, but the what ifs on the other side, because those are also just as likely. And I think it's just really interesting to kind of challenge that negativity bias that we are wired to have. We know that we're wired to have a negativity bias just because it's something that, in the past keeps us safe, as part of our survival mechanism. But you have to challenge it because, there's what ifs on either side. And so I love hearing your perspective on that. And I'm curious, Mimi, because I know you love the brain and I also love the brain. We talk a lot about it on Mindful in Minutes, but can you tell me more about what's happening in my brain, like when I'm listening to these activations? So I know we talk a lot about like the amygdala and, supporting like the nervous system and how we can rewire the brain for like less anxiety and things like that through meditation. But I'd love to hear what's happening in the brain when we're doing activations, because I also know there's research that when you are listening to something and moving your body at the same time, that you're more likely to have that information stick. It's something that actually I was encouraged to do when I was in middle school, and I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger. And that was something they kind of encouraged me to do, was to like kind of move my body while I was trying to take in information because it helps it stick. But can you talk a little bit about what's actually happening in the brain when we're doing this?
Yes, I love that so much. That's really interesting that in middle school you were told to do that. That's really incredible. You had resources to people, to people that can tell you that kind of information because it's true, especially with the classical conditioning piece I mentioned earlier. But also when you are like flooding your brain with new ways of thinking, like this is how your future self thinks, the activation might say, and you just start to play around with that idea, you don't even realize it, but you are actually creating new neural pathways in that moment. This has literally been studied and seen on brain scans when someone visualizes a new thing. And it's so cool because our brains are malleable. Like we can change our brains and how we think and the neuroplasticity in our brain. It means that it's plastic. Like we can change how we think and we can change old patterns and pathways that we have been in for so freaking long. And it's all changeable. We can change anything. We can change our personality. We can change the thoughts we think every day. We can change everything. So, a really interesting analogy that I like to share, just to give a visual, is think about let's say a limiting belief that's been going on a loop in your brain for years. Think about it like it's a big paved road. Okay, maybe that limiting belief is I could never earn $50,000 a month because that's an insane amount of money and I could just never earn that. That's impossible for me. Okay, and then let's think the new belief is anything is possible. The world is unlimited, and there's absolutely a potential out there for me to earn that much money. And every single time you think that new thought and start to look for reasons why it might be true, you are taking the bunny trail. So imagine your big paved road, and then on the side through the forest, there's a little bunny trail. And every time you take that little trail and choose a new thought, that trail becomes wider and wider. It becomes more established as a trail you can walk down. It seems more appealing to walk down that trail. And soon enough, if you keep doing this, that bunny trail will become its own paved path. And that previous limiting beliefs paved path will not have it would not have been used as often. So maybe trees start growing there and it's harder to actually walk down that path. So that's a good visual as to how, when you start to actually change the things that you are thinking about and change the information that is flooding into your mind, how the more you do it, the easier it gets. That's it. So that's a really incredible, reminder for all of us that it is possible to change. Our brains can change. And that is how we change our thoughts and beliefs and our self image. Ultimately, I keep talking about the self image, but it's really difficult to change your thoughts, beliefs, habits, actions if your self image has remained the same. So I'll give you an example. I have not identified as a runner, okay, in my life. I haven't. I'm a Pilates girly, but recently I've thought to myself, I want to improve my heart health and my cardio. I don't really do a lot of cardio, so I'm going to start running. I've decided I want to become a runner 2 times a week, maybe 5K runs, like nothing crazy. So, over the past week, before even deciding to go out on a run, what I did is in my visualizations while I was listening to my activations, I would just start to embody the energy of someone who loves doing all the things for her health. And one of those things is cardio and running. So I've started to flirt with the idea of becoming a runner and identifying as someone who runs. So I just started doing that. I didn't even put any pressure on myself to get up and run. I didn't start with the habit. I didn't start with the hard thing. I wanted it to be fun and easy because I don't like doing hard things and I like to find hacks. So basically, over the past 7 days in my activations, I'll just like casually be like, oh, yeah, I'm a runner. I take care of my body. Today, I randomly just had this craving to go on a run. And it was the first run I've done in years. And it was at like 1 p.m. today. I was in the middle of my workday and I was just like, I kind of want to go on a run. Like, I feel weird that I haven't moved yet this morning. And I put on my running shoes and I just went on a run. And it was really not, it was not like the best distance in the world. I think I did 3.3 kilometers because that was the most I could do because I'm a newbie. But I did it and I felt really good after. And I'm like, oh, I kind of want to, keep doing this more. So that's just an example of how I like to hack the system. I don't do things before I'm ready. What I do is I connect with my self image through my visualizations and I try to become a version of myself that likes to do that thing. So then it just becomes quite effortless and easy. So yeah, that was a cool thing that I experienced today.
That's really cool. And yeah, I mean, same. I don't identify as a runner either. So we're on but now I know if I wanted to, how I
Yeah.
could do that. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about money because this is like we don't talk about money on mindful in minutes, but I could not have you on, especially because the first time I was ever introduced to your work was Daniela was like, well, we're doing like planning for the year two for our businesses. Like, you have to listen to this activation. And it was a money centered one. And it's something that I wanted to kind of ask you about. And there's so many questions. I mean, there's so many different directions that we could go. But I think the first things that come to mind is why do you think it's so hard to talk about money, especially when you're in kind of like the wellness space or like, the spiritual space, the self-help space, things like that. And then why is it such a focus in the work that you do? So I'd love to hear why you think it's so challenging to like talk about it and embody. Like I struggle it too, like when you're talking about like, oh, a limiting belief is that I could never make $50,000 a month. When you said that, I was like, yeah, I do believe that about myself. I was like, wait, yeah, that's a real, belief in my head. Like that is an insane amount of money, but it's something that you talk about with such ease. And it's something that I know is like foundational to the work that you're doing. And so I would just love to hear your thoughts. I think it would be a missed opportunity for me not to ask you about it
Mm.
and to not kind of go there a little bit.
Totally. And I'm happy to share all the things with you. To be honest with you, I was definitely that type of limiting belief gal back in the day. And especially because I didn't come from money. And maybe that's why it was so important for me to become financially extremely abundant because I felt a lot of lack growing up. I have two artist parents that were living paycheck to paycheck, remortgaging the house, bankruptcies in the family, all the things, living as a child in a place where money was always something very stressful. My parents would fight about it. It was always a very negative thing. And I promised myself when I was younger that I would create a different life for myself because I felt so much pain, around financial insecurity. So maybe that's where the motivation came from. The reason I'm so outspoken about it as a woman is because when I first started this journey, I didn't see many women that looked like me, that acted like me, you know, talk about money that openly. And I felt like I had to really pave my own path to realize I could create insane wealth for myself. It really came from deciding that I was going to believe anything was possible. Think about just where we are. We're humans that get to experience, 80 to 100 years if we're lucky on this spinning planet. we don't even know, like science doesn't even know where we can, like it's just, we're in such a wild existence. Like, how is there a ceiling to possibility? There isn't. So I decided I was going to think unlimited possibility, and I was going to use that as a frame of reference in everything in my life. And I'm telling you, Kelly, it's been the thing that has created the life I live today. And I almost, feel a bit strange sharing exactly where I am today at my age, at the phase of life that I'm in. But it is just proof that this work works, because all I've done is look at possibility and commit to a very simple practice of becoming my future self. And I'm telling you, I have never had one perfect day. I talk about this in my book. I have never had one perfect day. I just have a quick bounce back rate. I just bounce back to being my future self, my favorite version of myself. And the years that I was building my wealth, I, I, I didn't have, I wasn't even my future self 100% of the time. So I just want to share, I guess, to the audience that you don't need to be perfect to get there. You can create incredible abundance for yourself if that's the future you choose and you commit to becoming the version of yourself that has it. So, yeah, I like to talk about money. It's a big part of what I talk about. We have a ton of money related content in the app. I love our targeted visualization category on the app. We have the most epic activations all about money. And I can confidently say that this work works. And that's coming from someone that went from, living paycheck to paycheck to being worth tens of millions of dollars. And I'm just blatantly saying that now. I know it sounds insane. It does. It sounds insane, but it happened. And I don't know how else to explain how it happened other than I've committed deeply to this work and it's my life's work. And I've helped tens of thousands of people change something in their life, whether that's financially, whether that's spiritually, mentally, physically. Like this is just how transformation works. So money, it's something that we need to feel comfortable with to achieve that number. So think about it like a thermostat, okay? If your money thermostat is set at 70 degrees, you're going to stay at that thermostat. And by the way, the thermostat is your self-image, okay? So if your set point is 70 degrees, if you get a raise or an inheritance or whatever, a sum of money, and you're still at a 70 from a self-image thermostat perspective, you're going to not even realize it, but you're going to spend all that money until you get back to 70. It's just going to happen because you're not comfortable with that higher amount. Same thing goes if you have a big payment and your car broke down or something one month and your thermostat, or and the temperature, let's say, gets to 65 degrees and you're like, oh, I need it to get a little warmer because I'm uncomfortable. Then you're going to maybe get a side gig or do something else that will bring your money back, or spend less and eat out less that month to bring you back to a 70. So I had realized that my money set point when I first started this journey was maybe at 20. And then I consciously, through my visualizations, brought it up to 30. And then I brought it up to 40. And I'm very comfortable with large amounts of money now. And funny enough, that is when I've started earning more. And it's not just like this energetic spiritual thing. No, it's because my RAS, the reticular activating system in my brain, filters information based off of my beliefs, just like it does for you. So in my brain, I'm like large amounts of money are comfortable, they're safe, and I see opportunity to achieve them. And I start seeing opportunities that always existed that I didn't see before when my set point was at a 30, but now I'm seeing them. So that's kind of how it works and how I think about it. And even just this past year, I've been doing one of our activations in the targeted visualization category. We have everything from like manifest $1,000 to manifest $100 million, which I know is a lot of money it's for anyone, it's a lot of money. So don't want to,
I haven't been fed that one yet, but I did see the algorithm knows. It's like, Kelly is not quite there yet. We're going to suggest, I think I got the recommendation this morning when I was in the app of 100,000. I believe is the
Yeah,
one, the
listen,
activation for that I got recommended today in the
we
app.
we have from like literally every single phase in between those two numbers just for people to choose the one that they feel is potentially possible for them. And then once they get to that next level, they can listen to the next. And also having $100 million is not for everyone. You know what I mean? Like we spoke about earlier, like it's okay if you just want to get like a $30,000 raise and just feel a little bit more comfortable going to the grocery store and not looking at prices. Like that is a financial goal to have. But if you are in your girl boss era and you want to create, you know, generational wealth for yourself, like that's a different goal that some of us have. So, but just understanding that it's all about comfort and ease. It is all about that because when you get comfortable with these large amounts of money, you're going to start seeing where in your life you can shift and what decisions you need to make to achieve that goal. And you're going to start feeling uncomfortable not having certain amounts in your bank account. And it's very interesting to see the psychology behind it because I've experienced that firsthand. For example, when I purchased the home that I'm in right now. That was seven figures in a down payment that came out of my investment account. And I was like, whoa, I'm not used to my investment account not having this amount of money in it. So just naturally, I like didn't spend as much for the following 8 months. And then I got back up to where I was or whatever it was. And yeah, it's really so interesting just to kind of be aware. So on a big scale, on a small scale, your identity is tied to what you believe is comfortable and safe financially. And it's just, yeah, long story short, you can create whatever life you want. And that's a core belief of mine. You are 100% responsible for creating the life that you desire. And you have to just get honest with yourself because again, I'm not saying everyone wants to have this incredible amount. Some people don't want that, and that's okay too. Maybe for you, it is you wanting just to feel like safe and grounded every day and live on a farm and whatever. Like, I love how everyone is so unique, but we have something for everyone, and that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why, like, when we were talking off mic a little bit, and you were like, Kelly, we'll just put together like a website. Your people can come and try it. Like, you can try it for 2 weeks. I wrote it down, activations.com/mindful friends. But the reason that I'm bringing that up is because I think that you're right that there is something on the app for everyone. But in particular, like when you're talking about money and like money mindset and kind of that like thermostat, I do think that that's something. I mean, we all think about money all the time. It's something that like, I mean, it's a part of our existence. It's a part of like everyday life. And it's something that I think we're all on such a personal journey with, that even if people just want to try it and they're curious about like what these activations might be like, for finances and for money, that it's just worth just like giving it a shot and seeing what it's all about, because it's also hard for me to describe having like done it. It's hard for me to really describe what it's like. You kind of have to like try it for yourself, but I do think that it's worth really like checking that out, because it's something like money is something that is a part of our everyday existence.
Yeah, no, totally. And we have so much content on the app for that. We have this 5-day money manifestation challenge, and it's all about reprogramming your thoughts around money, becoming your future self that's more comfortable with certain amounts of money. And like, even we've had success stories from our users that will listen to a certain wealth, abundance focused activation before going into a meeting with their boss, and they get raises that they didn't even realize were possible because they're going in with a certain energy of this is my worth and listen, like this is what I feel comfortable with as a baseline, and they're walking away from those meetings because their energy was a certain way. Their magnetized energy was towards a certain number. And we've had so many success stories from people even just getting that raise or like meeting someone at a party. I got a testimonial last week from this girl that was at this networking event, and she had done this like abundance activation right before going. So she was already in this like magnetic abundance kind of state of being. And then she meets someone there and they mention that they have this business. And then she thought of a creative way to collaborate with that business. And then she just pitched it on the spot because she felt the confidence, right, of the version of herself that has that abundance, the confidence she would have. So she already embodied it. She put herself out there, and then she now has this like $30,000 contract just from this one meeting. It was insane. So, it really is about your personality, your identity, how you hold yourself, and what number you're comfortable with. Okay. So it's really all about that. And we have so much content on the app to help you get there. We have content on the app for every type of category. So, yeah, I'm offering, as Kelly mentioned, if you guys want to try it for 2 weeks free, you can feel a significant difference in 2 weeks. And that's why we wanted to do a longer trial. And if you're interested in checking that out, just go to activations.com/mindful and go to the website, not the app store, because that's where we can offer the discounts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, for tech reasons, which, it's always, those are always so fun. But yeah, through the website.
Kelly loves tech reasons.
Oh my gosh, you guys,
Kelly's had a lot of tech.
yes, I have. And you know what? I actually was a few minutes late chatting with Mimi because Google Chrome just decided it's like, I just don't want to work today. And I was like, today is not the day. But uh, I told Mimi before we hit record, I was like, I don't know if I need to get like some holy water out and like sprinkle it on my computer, but I need to do something. Mimi, if you have do you have a couple extra minutes? I have some rapid
I
fire
do,
questions.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
amazing. I just have like some rapid fire questions. If you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay, cool. What are you currently manifesting right now?
Oh my gosh. I wish I could tell you, but it's actually very confidential. But you might find
Oh,
out in 6 to 8 months.
Okay. 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 Maybe like in 6 to 8 months from now, Mimi, you can come back and you can
Yes.
tell
Yeah, I'll
me.
be like, it happened.
Okay. I am currently, for listeners, no one asked, but the thing that I'm manifesting right now is I'm really manifesting more ease into my life. Like I've had like one of those years where it's just like you feel like you can't like catch a break, just a lot of like, lifestyle, some like deaths in the family, like, so, just a lot of those things that you're kind of just like, that really all just, can't. And so I'm really manifesting like more ease into the life and just like not having everything feel like so tricky. So
I
that's
love
mine. But
that.
in 6 to 8 months, Mimi, I can't wait to hear what the secret manifestation is.
Oh, I can't, I wish I could tell you, but I'm usually quite an oversharer, but with this kind of thing, I can't be. But I'll
Yeah.
tell you something else I'm manifesting that I mentioned to you off air.
Yeah.
At some point in the next, well, this is another 6 to 8 month thing. I am wanting to start, building a family and conceiving and stuff. So that's something else I'm kind of preparing my body for. So yeah, hoping that that all happens smoothly. But I really am so aligned with what you said about ease as well. That's something I've noticed a lot of women have like been attracted to, especially, my friend group and myself, just softening into that more feminine, light, easeful energy. And I'm totally aligned with that. I love that.
Yeah. I think it's something that it's just like so I'm just realizing like there are certain things in life that just are hard, but not everything has to, be that
Hmm.
way. And so I'm really kind of like welcoming in that like ease and harmony are two words that I'm really like welcoming into like my life and my existence right now. Okay. Walk us through, Mimi. What is like a typical day for you? Not even I want to hear about like the most mundane. Just give me the step by step. You just like what time do you wake up?
I've been sleeping in lately. I've been waking up at like 8. So yeah,
I know for some
I've
people that's not sleeping in, but
Oh, really? I feel like as a business owner, I'm like, everyone's like, oh, I wake up at 6:30. I'm like, no, I've been waking up at 8, even 8:30 this morning. I woke up at 8:30. So, yeah, I've been loving slow mornings, especially because when I'm in London, my team is mainly in the US. So I have mornings. I work a little bit later. So yeah, I'll wake up around 8 and then I will come downstairs. I'll make my coffee. I put some collagen, some honey, and some cream in my coffee, and I drink that while, whether it's, going through a magazine. I'm really trying to do less tech time in the morning. So, yes, some mornings I'll go on like Reddit or something, which is less stimulating than Instagram. I actually have my screen time blocked until 10 a.m. for Instagram because I cannot control myself. And yeah, so I'll try to read something physical, ideally. If I'm in the mood to journal, I might do some writing. If I don't know what to write about, I might pop on a writing activation. We have like guided journaling on the app. It's a kind of a unique category. It's called writing, the writing category. So it just says it's nice music and then it says prompts that I can just respond to, and it gives you time to respond to each one. So maybe I do that. And then I have breakfast. I've been basically just having Greek yogurt bowls for breakfast every morning, with some blueberries, banana, homemade granola, that type of thing. And then I will slowly start checking up on things on my computer, do a few emails, and then I'll walk my dog. So we have a park near where I live here, and I'll go on a nice hour-long walk with her. I might do some phone calls or listen to a walking activation, or a podcast, whatever I'm in the mood for. And then, yeah, maybe I'll go grab some groceries and I like to cook a lot. So, make something for lunch and, do some more calls and meetings from around 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then what else do I do? I'll often cook a nice dinner, or my husband and I will go out for dinner, maybe see some friends, and then just we have these things called us nights where basically we just rot on the on the couch and watch TV and make tea and cuddle. And those are my favorite nights with our dog, and that's basically a typical mundane life for Mimi.
I love it. I love hearing about just people's lives and like what they do, what they get excited about, like their day to day. Because I think sometimes when you do the kind of stuff that like we do, you kind of craft this like certain picture of like what someone's day to day might be. And a lot of times there's a lot of just really simple, like mundane things that happen. So I love that. Two more just quick questions. One, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self one thing, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to stop worrying so much because what I want is going to happen. I think I anticipated, I wanted this life that I currently live so badly, and I was so committed to becoming her. And I did become her, and I did create that life, but I did have moments of worry of what if it doesn't happen? But no matter what, it happened, and it didn't happen the exact way I thought it would. I created abundance in my life in a different way to how I used to think it would have maybe come about. I have had many situations in my life happen that were unexpected, but that's the beauty of surrendering. And there's this perfect balance of moving towards something you desire, but then being open and okay with the how. It's the what that I wanted. And I just needed to relax a bit more about the how and just trust, because the how is how the universe surprises you. It's how, you feel awe in life. It's boring to know exactly how everything's going to happen. So I would tell myself to not worry as much.
Yeah. And if you could like in one sentence, if there's one sentence you'd want mindful in minutes listeners, not me messing up the own name of my podcast, but like if you could just tell them like what, like if they were driving and they could see on like a billboard, like one sentence or phrase, what would you tell them?
You are exactly where you need to be. Don't regret the past, just focus on the future.
I love it. I love it. Well, Mimi, thank you so much for chatting with me and for being so generous with your time. I've been so curious about your work and you for so long. And so I've just have loved being able to chat with you and hear about your process and everything that you're doing, the incredible work that you're doing. And I know that you guys are probably all Googling Mimi and all of her information and everything right now as you're listening and you're wanting to know like, how can I catch up with her? And I'm going to link everything in the show notes. Everything will be in there. How you can get a hold of her, all of that, where to connect with her. And then, of course, you already know, but Mimi has offered us, all Mindful in Minutes listeners, you're going to go to activations.com/mindful. You can get 2 weeks free. Also, you can get a big, juicy discount there. In my opinion, it's worth paying full price. However, who wants to do that these days? So you can also get a discount on your first year. I'm going to link to that in the show notes as well. So you can click through and head over to that website. Mimi, any last thoughts or anything as we're wrapping up that you want people to know?
No, it was just lovely chatting with you, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that for someone listening, this, might have shown a different perspective and helped you think outside the box a little bit more. I remember back in the day when, I thought that there was a ceiling to what I could create in my life. And once I broke through that, all of the beauty of life really came shining in, and I started to achieve so much more than I ever thought possible. So it's not just possible for someone like me, it's possible for someone like you, and it's possible for anyone listening that wants to commit to the work. And it doesn't have to be as hard as you think it is. Just follow the simple process and just keep showing up as her. So that's what I'll say.
Amazing. Perfect note to end it on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kelly.